Welcome back, guys. It's been some time. We've struggled. We've all been struggling, but it's all right. Times will get better. We're back today with another unboxing video. Today we have an MSI GE75 Raider laptop. Oh, let's pull this out real quick. So the box is kind of heavy, heavier than most laptops we've unboxed. But we'll get into that in just a few moments. But real quick, before we get into the video, just a quick word about our sponsor for today's video. ucdkeys.com is a website where you can purchase software keys for Windows, Microsoft Office. You can also buy prepaid game cards for Xbox and PlayStation Network. There's also a 20% off promo code, so that's down in the description below. So it's helpful if you're building PCs or you just want to do a fresh format of Windows. Alright, well, let's get into unboxing. As I said before, it's quite heavy. More than most laptops, but whatever, you know, it doesn't really matter. No one cares about the box. Let's open it. All these. There we go. You want to be careful which way you open it. You just don't want to rush. Alright, so let's see. Obviously we have the laptop, but a lot of people are interested in the goodies you get, such as posters, stickers, whatever. Okay. Not much. And stop. We're here to help. Just throw that card aside. And under all that, we have the actual laptop itself. It's wrapped in plastic, obviously. Pop that out. Keep that to the side just for a moment. We have the user's manual. Now you know how important these things are, so just keep that aside. You never know if your Wi-Fi is dead and you need some info. And there's a hard drive bracket as well if you want to install an extra hard drive in there. This will let you mount it properly. So keep that aside. In terms of freebies, doesn't look like there's anything, to be honest. You know, that kind of sucks these days. It's a trend we've been seeing with video card manufacturers, laptop manufacturers. You don't get posters and freebies and stickers, whatever, like you used to get. There's nothing, absolutely nothing. So you have this, you have the power cord and the power brick. The power brick. Speak about that in just a second. Now the power brick, it's quite heavy and large. So almost about the size of an actual red brick. Not nearly as heavy, but it's still heavy nonetheless. If you're carrying this in a backpack, or you're gonna feel it, it's gonna add to the weight, certainly. It's a bit bigger than most power bricks of laptops, but that's due to the fact that it's using an RTX 2080 Super, so it needs quite a bit more power than most laptops to run. Whatever. Let's carry on. You just have the power plug. Cord. Now we have the actual laptop. It's in this plastic bag, as you can see. Throw that aside. And now it's in this mesh type of bag. Let's pull it out nice and easy. Right. So, still has the plastic coating on here, the film. We're not going to remove that. Well, it's pretty nice once you open it up. You get this cloth. Some people like to keep the plastic and the cloth, you know, on their new things. So this is kind of cool to have, just to cover the keyboard. Keep dust from getting inside and whatever. This is to protect the screen against the part of the chassis here. But real quick specs. This laptop, the MSI GE75 Raider, this particular laptop is using the i7-10775H. It's a 6-core processor at 5 gigahertz. It also has an RTX 2080 Super GPU, and it's paired with 32 gigabytes of RAM running at 6600 megahertz. It also has a 1 terabyte NVMe drive by Samsung. We'll get into the specs and performance in just a bit. We'll just review and talk about how it looks, you know, initial impressions and whatnot. So let's get into that. Just real quick, we'll just go ahead and turn it on. The power button's right over here. The ports, the plugs and ports for this thing. Well, on the left side here we have, just real quick, we have a USB port here, a mini display port, an HDMI port, an Ethernet port, and a USB Type-C right here, as well as audio in and out. Over on this side of the laptop, you have 2 more USB ports, as well as an SD card reader. Now these USB ports, they light up. They're not RGB, but they light up red, and there's software where you can make it flash or breathing, you know those typical standard effects you can get. You can turn them off too. So yeah, you also have the air exhaust vent here on the side. Both sides have the exhaust, also on the back. That's to help with thermals, which we'll get into later. The keyboard is very noticeable. It's one of the brightest keyboards we've seen in a gaming laptop, and that's thanks to the SteelSeries keyboard that they're using. Keyboard it's one of the first things you notice about a laptop, the screen and the keyboard, you know, the lights, flashy RGB lights. People like that, and it looks really nice in this case. Something to notice about the keyboard is when you hold F, the function key, only the relevant keys will light up. I'm not sure if you can see that in the video. I'll try to move it in. So I want to hold the function key, only those will light up. That's pretty cool, especially in the dark. That was quite handy while using this laptop in the dark. It makes you wish other laptops would have that too. Now the screen, it's can't forget about the screen. It's a pretty bright screen. It's 300 hertz. It's full HD, 1920 by 1080 resolution. It's an IPS panel. It's very bright, very vivid. The colors are great. It's a bit on the warm side though. There is some backlight bleeding on the screen. Kind of more than what I've seen in some laptops, especially on the corners. You know, when you spend some decent money on a laptop, it's kind of, in a way, unacceptable to have backlight bleeding. But it's only when the screen is completely black, that's when you can notice it. But when you're using it now like this, you can't really notice it. Or in games, whatever, you can't notice the backlight bleeding. Now the case itself, the chassis, if you will, it's aluminum. It's very sturdy. It does not flex at all. Because of that, it is a fingerprint magnet though. You'll always wipe this down and clean it off. It does attract a lot of fingerprints. That's because it's using this aluminum build. Screen doesn't flex too much. It's pretty good. You have to open it with 2 hands though. It starts to raise itself. Oops. Yeah, it's a very beautiful display. Alright, just a quick word on performance now. It seems like every year the i7 CPU, it gets warmer and warmer. And during our benchmarking and testing, we've seen that the CPU, 6 cores, supposed to reach up to 5 gigahertz. It reaches up to 95 and even spikes up to 97 Celsius under full load. So while you're playing Call of Duty or Warhammer Total War, Red Dead Redemption 2, it'll run pretty hot. That's a hot running CPU. And the fans are quite loud. Maybe one of the loudest I've heard in a laptop. Now the GPU, the video card itself, I believe it's capped and has a temperature lock of 87 Celsius. So that's kind of quite warm, but not as much as the CPU. So it runs pretty hot. It runs pretty hot. Luckily, there's a turbo button for the fan here, but that gets even louder. It does move some air pretty well. You can feel it drawing air from the sides of the keyboards and the USB ports. Right above that is the button for the keyboard as well. You can change the lighting effects. But performance is great though. Performance is really good for a laptop. The CPU itself, it's supposed to reach up to 5 gigahertz, but during the testing it wouldn't really spike more than 4.6, 4.7 gigahertz in a good scenario. But nevertheless, if you apply liquid metal or do some mods, whatever, I'm sure you could lower the temperature and increase the frequency of the CPU. Now the GPU, the core clock hovers around 1700 megahertz, 1800 megahertz. Depends on temperature and what's going on in the game, yada yada. But we'll be getting into some of the details with some demonstrations on the benchmarks we've taken from this laptop. And for a laptop, it's quite impressive. Regardless of the heat, you have to realize in the end of the day, a laptop is, a laptop. And when you cram these desktop rated cards in there and these high performing CPUs, it does get quite hot. Just before we get into the benchmarks videos, I'll just review the pros and cons I personally experienced while using the laptop. Now, some of these may bother some people and may not bother other people. It's whatever, when you buy these things, it's all on you, personal preference. So pros and cons. Start by the pros. Bright big screen. It's 300 hertz. It's great and it's vibrant. Bezels, thin bezels, it looks great. The screen is amazing. Just the con is the backlight bleeding, it's always a con in laptops after you spend money on it. Another pro is great performance. Now, don't get me wrong, it runs really hot, but performance is great. It can even outclass some modern budget, mid-tier gaming desktops even. Another pro is it's not too heavy for a 17-inch laptop. It's not too heavy at all. So power brick is probably what will annoy you the most. Amazing speakers, by the way. Amazing speakers. They're punchy. They have some bass. And after you listen to these speakers, it'll blow every laptop out of the water. Most all of them. It's very great. Very good speakers. It can help with covering up the fan noise. Now the keyboard, it's a great keyboard. It's very responsive. It's not clicky, but you can certainly feel the feedback. It just felt a little cramped, but that's all personal preference. It's a great keyboard, and the colors are amazing. And it comes with SteelSeries software where you can address each individual key on the keyboard and change the RGB theme to whatever you like. It does conflict with some software though. I plugged in a Razer mouse, and after plugging in the Razer mouse, I don't know what service it uses on Windows, but once you plug in the Razer mouse, these RGB lights start to misbehave and it doesn't respond to this button to change the effects. So that's something a bit odd. The touchpad is pretty good. It's very snappy and responsive. You just think, move your finger, and it'll get the job done. The USB ports light up. That's pretty cool, especially in the dark when you want to plug in a device. It's very annoying when you get the wrong side of the USB. It's always the wrong side first. Well, you can see it better now when you plug it in the dark. Sturdy construction. They didn't cut any corners when it came to quality control on the construction of the laptop. It's pretty sturdy. It's pretty sturdy. No flex, none of that. Now, just some of the cons I've noticed with using the laptop during testing and whatnot was the backlight bleeding, which we already got into, and it's a fingerprint magnet, which aesthetically is not too pleasing, but it's whatever, really. It's nitpicking and you can just wipe it off easily. The fans are also quite loud. It can get annoying, but if you wear headphones, you won't really hear it. But if you have other people in the room, it might annoy them. That's because the CPU runs really hot, 97 Celsius. You can fix it with liquid metal. Be careful with that. Also, in terms of temperature, I've noticed it gets really hot up here. It gets quite hot to the touch up here and pretty warm by the WASD keys. It gets pretty warm, you know. Your hand starts sweating. It just adds to the fingerprints. But again, that's just nitpicking. When you buy a laptop like this, you just want nothing but raw performance, and that's where this laptop will absolutely deliver. You will get the raw performance from this laptop, and it'll even outclass mid-tier gaming PCs. So we have more in-depth benchmarks coming up. Yeah, feel free to ask us questions in the comments. We'll get back to you guys as best as we can, and hope you you guys enjoyed the video. Spend some time. So, thank you for watching. Till next time.
Enemy at the office.